Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a seriously fascinating piece of writing by Jonathan Acuna Solano, specifically his July 4, 2026 essay, Post 569. We're going to explore the dynamic and sometimes a little bit messy world of corrective feedback in English language teaching, or ELT, and we're going to discover how stepping back as a teacher might actually be the exact thing that propels students forward. So I want you to start by thinking about this really direct question. Who should be correcting your mistakes? Just take a second and think about your own experiences in a classroom. I mean, we all have this deeply ingrained assumption, almost like a reflex at this point, that the teacher must be the absolute sole source of truth when we're learning, right? You say something wrong, the teacher fixes it. Boom, done. But what if that traditional dynamic is actually shortchanging our cognitive development? Well, here is our roadmap for today to figure that out. We're looking at the feedback dilemma, the limits of teacher authority, the power of peer correction, building trust and culture, and finally, a balanced corrective approach. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the feedback dilemma, rethinking the red pen. To really understand this dilemma, we have to look at our historical baseline. The traditional view pretty much states that teachers are the exclusive source of linguistic authority. For years, correction essentially flowed in just one single direction, from the expert straight to the learner. The teacher holds the red pen, the teacher spots the error, and the teacher provides the fix. And it makes total sense on the surface. Teachers are the perceived experts. But as we'll see in a minute, this one-way street has some pretty major limitations. Moving on to Section 2, the limits of teacher authority, shifting from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. Now, before we go critiquing the traditional model, we absolutely have to validate it, because it for sure has merit. Teacher correction provides immediate clarification and authoritative explanations. It offers consistency and highly structured guidance. And honestly, especially for beginner learners, this kind of feedback provides essential linguistic security. Students naturally trust their teachers because our entire institutional system is built to position educators as the primary knowledge holders. It just feels safe. But when we contrast that old model with modern communicative methodologies, so comparing strict teacher-led correction against collaborative interaction, we start to see an unintended side effect. Excessive reliance on a teacher's immediate answers can actually create learner dependency. Think about it. When teachers constantly swoop in to fix absolutely every single mistake, learners just get used to waiting for the correction rather than actively monitoring their own output. They essentially stop self-regulating. This exact shift in mindset is captured so perfectly by scholar David Noonan, who wrote back in 1999, "Learners learn best when they are actively involved in the learning process, rather than passive recipients of knowledge." In methodologies like communicative language teaching and task-based language teaching, you literally cannot be passive. You have to interact. You have to negotiate meaning. Which brings us to Section 3, the power of peer correction. Let's get into the cognitive science of collaboration. Okay, to understand why peer correction is such a massive step up in cognitive engagement, we have to talk about Lev Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, or ZPD. Basically, this is defined as the distance between what you can do independently and what you can do with guidance. But notice that very last part, or peer collaboration. Vygotsky explicitly included collaboration with more capable peers as a core biological and social developmental mechanism. You don't just learn from the master, you can absolutely learn from the person sitting right next to you who might just understand one specific grammar rule slightly better than you do. And this phenomenal quote from Vygotsky really anchors the entire concept. What the child is able to do in collaboration today, he will be able to do independently tomorrow. Cognitive development happens on the social plane first. We talk it out, we solve it together, and actually, only then does it become internalized in our own minds. Building right on that, Merrill Swain's output hypothesis outlines 3 crucial steps. First, learners produce language. Second, struggling to actually produce it forces them to shift gears from just thinking about meaning, which is semantic processing, to thinking about grammar and structure, the syntactic processing. And third, when they collaboratively discuss those errors with a peer, they engage in deep metalinguistic reflection. They aren't just hearing a correction, they are actively processing exactly why it's a correction. So the real crucial point here is that collaborative noticing requires some serious mental heavy lifting. Unlike just passively nodding at a teacher's red pen marks, peer interaction forces learners to justify their explanations, to negotiate meaning, to compare their hypotheses, and actually articulate their grammatical reasoning out loud. They are jointly constructing linguistic understanding and solving problems that totally exceed what they could do individually. All right, Section 4, Building Trust and Culture. Overcoming implementation hurdles. In the real world, shifting from teacher correction to peer correction means overcoming some deeply ingrained educational habits. So we really have to ask the elephant in the room question here. Do students actually trust peer correction? And the truth? Often, they don't. Students frequently resist peer feedback. And why? Because like we said earlier, we've been conditioned to associate authority strictly with expertise. If it doesn't come from the teacher, students naturally think, wait, why should I listen to you? You're learning this just like I am. There are several specific factors that influence this lack of trust. Proficiency differences can definitely make students skeptical of their peers. Classroom relationships matter too. Are they close friends or total strangers? Prior educational experiences play a huge role as well, especially if they come from a highly teacher-dominated background. And lastly, personal confidence levels can create friction. These are the very real specific hurdles that make peer correction initially feel super unfamiliar or unreliable to a lot of students. But fortunately, educators can actively work to fix this friction. To increase trust, they need to provide actual learner training on how to give feedback. They need to structure tasks really clearly so students know exactly what they are looking for. They have to make correction criteria completely transparent, and above all, they need to foster a collaborative, non-competitive culture. You literally have to build a scaffolding of trust before you can build a scaffolding of language. All of this builds towards establishing strict emotional safety norms, respect, cooperation, shared growth, and a focus on developmental learning. Because without clear modeling and supportive language protocols, peer correction can really quickly trigger a fear of ridicule. If a student is afraid of being embarrassed by a classmate, they are just going to shut down entirely. Emotional safety is an absolute non-negotiable prerequisite for this to work. Let's bring it all together in Section 5, a balanced corrective approach. The synthesis of teacher and peer. Now, we certainly aren't saying the teacher disappears. Far from it. Communicative pedagogy views these two methods as highly complementary, not opposing forces. When we synthesize them side by side, a really clear picture emerges. With teacher correction, authority is high and accuracy is usually very reliable. But learner participation is often passive, and the development of autonomy is pretty limited. Now look at peer correction. Authority is shared, it's highly interactive. Yes, accuracy reliability is variable, that's true, but the opportunities for collaborative noticing and developing autonomy are incredibly strong. The emotional impact for teachers depends on their delivery, while for peers it depends entirely on the classroom culture we just talked about. Basically, both approaches have distinct, totally vital strengths. So here is our synthesized core takeaway. Teacher feedback equals expert guidance and accuracy. Peer feedback equals collaborative scaffolding and learner agency. The teacher clarifies the rules, but the peers cultivate the autonomy and the social construction of that knowledge. You absolutely need both to create a truly effective communicative classroom. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. How will you share the responsibility of learning in your next class? Whether you are a teacher designing a lesson or a student sitting at a desk, challenge yourself to step out of the passive receiving mode. Empower yourself and empower those around you to actively participate in the messy, collaborative, and honestly beautiful process of language development. Thanks so much for joining me on this Explainer, Focused Learners. Keep asking questions and keep learning together. Catch you next time.